Hey everybody, I'm Ben Elliott, this is my wife.
I'm Taryn Elliott.
And welcome to the first episode of Walking Between Shadows, a true crime podcast that's not only going to be about true crime, but we're going to throw some other stuff in there from time to time too.
Absolutely.
So we started this podcast just recently because of my growing interest in true crime. And Taryn, you have always kind of had an interest in this.
I have been interested in this in many years and have been following some true crime podcasters and really getting into this, and since we've moved back here.
Yeah, so Taryn and I grew up in this community and are so close in age. We've known each other practically our whole lives, and our families have known each other for our whole lives. And so we got married back at the beginning of the year and moved back about a month or 6 weeks ago. And we're real excited because it gives us a chance to interact with friends and family that we haven't seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. And we have friends and family that are involved on both sides of this case.
We do.
And so that's been interesting too. That's been a weird dynamic in some cases, mm-hmm. and an emotional dynamic in others. So again, Walking Between Shadows, a true crime series, a true crime podcast and YouTube channel. We're going to start with something here local and something that we're familiar with. I know it happened and you were still in Tennessee, right?
I was still in Tennessee. This was in 1999, in the spring of 99. So I was raising babies and going to school and working and...
Yeah, kind of the same thing. This first case is about the same thing the victim was doing.
A lot. Very much so.
And I was gone. I had moved away. I was in the military, in the Marines, and stationed out in Hawaii and on deployment in Korea at the time. So I just heard bits and pieces, mm-hmm. if I talked to my parents or something back home. So again, anything you want to add about our new podcast and what you're excited about?
I'm excited because we're starting to get a response from people already. I think people are pretty excited about hearing about this case. And
yeah, and I think a theme that you and I both have really heard loud and clear is that people just don't feel like they have answers. No. And being a cold case, it just kind of gets lost in the noise of everyday life. And talking to the family and the friends that we have so far, that's the common theme, is they really need closure and they're really looking for someone to come forward if they still have information about it. So with that being said, Taryn, you ready to start talking about this first case?
I am ready to start talking about this case.
Good deal.
The March 30th, 1999 murders of Debbie Harris and Ambria Halliburton continue to haunt those that knew them. Jamie and Debra separated in February of 1999. Both moved out and planned to go their own ways. When plans fell through on the new home, Debra contacted her former landlady, Dawn Patterson, and asked her about moving back into the trailer. Dawn worked with Debra and allowed her to move in. On March 15, 1999, Debra and Ambria settled back into the trailer to live. Dawn Patterson last saw Debra Harris on March 29, 1999, when Debra stopped to give her money for the rent. Before she left, she told Dawn Patterson that she had an interview for a second job at a grocery store. Neighbors had noticed Debra's blue Chevrolet Beretta seemed to be in the driveway more than normal. Debra did not show up to pay Dawn the remainder of the rent on April the 2nd. On April the 4th of 1999, on Easter Sunday, a friend stopped by for a visit. The friend opened the door to an awful smell of decomposition. The investigators hung an orange sign on the front door that read words, "Danger Biohazard." 2 a.m. Monday morning, April 5th of 1999, agents from the TBI arrived on the scene. They processed potential evidence until mid-morning. They did not find any unusual fingerprints, DNA, or any other forensic evidence to help them point to the perpetrator. So on April 8th of 1999, the bodies of Debra and young daughter Ambria were laid to rest at the Salem Church Cemetery in Gadsden, Tennessee. Governor Don Sundquist authorized a $2,500 reward per each victim for information leading to the arrest, indictment, or conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murders of Debbie and Ambria. One of the first suspects in the case was Angel Maturino Resendez, and I hope I said that right, but I probably didn't. Reported by the papers by the name Rafael Resendez Ramirez, which is his most well-known alias. He was to be known as the railway killer. Resendez is suspected of killing as many as 23 people. Resendez died by lethal injection June 27th of 2006. He was never charged in connection with the murders of Debbie and Ambria. Another known serial killer eventually took responsibility for the murders of Debbie and Ambria. Tommy Lynn Sales confessed to Texas Rangers. All the following details are simply the words of Tommy Lynn Sales. Sales said that he took a 20-mile detour north of Route 40 when he reached Jackson, Tennessee. According to his statement, he reached the front door of the quiet trailer sometime around midnight of March 30th. He knocked on the front door and it slightly opened. He slipped inside. He saw a stack of watermelon design plates on the counter. In the drawer just below, he found a knife. He walked down the hallway into Debbie's room, where he says a calico cat jumped out and hid at the sight of him. He said he was amused to find a price tag with the name Tommy on the dresser. He then eased himself onto the bed and put the knife to Deborah's throat. According to Sales, Deborah never made a noise or put up a fight. After raping Deborah's unresponsive body, he stabbed her multiple times. Alright, so he then walked to the bathroom to clean the blood off his arms and hands with a bar of soap he found on a little mouse soap dish. He looked in the hallway and saw little Ambria standing there looking confused. He lunged at Ambria, chasing her into the living room. When he caught her, he slammed the knife into her body with such force that she came from the floor. He stabbed her more than once and she went limp. He thought he heard a noise from Deborah's room and he went back in her room and stabbed her one last time, leaving the knife in her chest. The issue with Mr. Sales' confession is that he confessed to many murders after being charged with the December 31st, 1999 murders of Kayleen Harris. Some of the murders he claimed responsibility for were never proven to have happened. Many believe that Mr. Sales confessed to other murders in hopes of becoming incarcerated somewhere else to get special treatment on death row. On the other hand, many do believe Sales is responsible for the murders, as he talked about, and possibly more. Tommy Lynn Sales, aka the Coast to Coast Killer, died by lethal injection April 3rd, 2014. Some close to Debbie and Ambria do not feel that this case has been solved. Nobody deserves the fear and the pain that they must have felt. My heart truly breaks from them and everyone that loved them.
So what you just covered was a Facebook post from West Tennessee Missing and Unsolved. They posted that back in 2018 when this case was reopened. And so I want you to go a little deeper into that article and explain to me a little bit more about it. But before you start, this map behind us shows that West Tennessee area that we're talking about. Jackson would be about 20 miles south of Humboldt here. But then you have Milan and Trenton, and you can see that triangle kind of in the middle or close to Milan is the crime scene. And then at the far right, at the top up there, you have Paris Landing. And I know you're going to address that as we get deeper into this and maybe several times throughout these episodes. But for now, just go ahead and dissect this article that was published in 2018.
Okay. So we'll start with the blue Chevrolet Beretta that was in the driveway and in the crime scene photos. And that car is still in question of who that belongs to. Debbie owned a 2-door gray Regal that I think that was paid for. So, I mean, still don't really know who that car belonged to. That's in question.
That blue Beretta.
It is. I mean, after 23 years, it's suspicious to me that it's not been brought up.
But really, the people that don't know about it are the people that have been interviewed multiple times. Her own brother and friends say they do not know who that car belonged to.
No, and still don't to this day. So maybe we'll find that out. Also, the car, Debbie's purse had been taken from that scene, and they had found it a little bit down the road, and the car key to the Regal was found several days after the initial search, and it was found behind a picture in the living room or the kitchen area.
Either way, it was in the house.
Yeah, it was in the house, and it was kind of hidden.
And yet her purse was down the road in a ditch.
Purse was down the road, and she had a dolphin ring that was missing as well. So, okay, and then we'll go down to the 4th, when the bodies were found.
April 4th, 99.
Right. The person that found this scene was, we'll call him Jim, but he came up to the house and knocked on the door, and nobody answered. And then he went in. But you have to remember, this was 4 or 5 days after the murders. So the smell alone would have been horrible. Mm-hmm. It was so bad that when the police came, they smelled it from far away, mm-hmm, before they even got in the driveway. But Jim goes into the house and finds Debbie and thinks it's a joke, still kind of shocked, and he kicks the body of Debbie. Then, realizing where he was at and what was going on, he left and wiped his fingerprints off the door. I do know that. And called the police, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. So the police show up after he finds them.
Yeah, he couldn't have been there long, right?
Well, I wouldn't want to stay there very long, would you?
No, I mean, we know that was the day the bodies were found, mm-hmm, and they had already started decomposing, mm-hmm, and the smell was bad. I don't know anybody that would hang out in there very long.
No, and
so the police were probably notified pretty quick.
Right, and to my understanding, the bodies were, of course, swelled up from the heat and from decomposition, mm-hmm, too. So they were probably somewhat unrecognizable. Mm-hmm. So next we'll go down to Tommy Lynn Sells. Tommy Lynn Sells stated that he went into the trailer around midnight on March the 30th. So it would have been dark, and I'm presuming that Debbie would have been in bed and Ambria as well. And he stated that he goes in and he walks into the house, and there's watermelon plates on the counter in the kitchen. He finds the knife underneath the plates in a drawer. Mm-hmm. He takes the knife and goes back to Debbie's room and puts the knife to her throat. And then he rapes her. She doesn't fight back. She doesn't make any noise. And then after he rapes her, he stabs her. And we know she was stabbed 19 times in the upper body. So we know he didn't rape her now that 23 years later, and there's been studies on Tommy Lynn Sells that he was sexually incompetent. And anybody that he did rape, they say he used weapons or objects, mm-hmm, to rape them with. So that's questionable. All right. And Debbie was not in the bedroom. She was found in the hallway, or in between, right, maybe before the hallway and the kitchen, living room, hallway area.
Yeah.
Tommy Lynn Sells then stated he walked into the bathroom to clean the blood off his arms and hands with the bar of soap that he found in a little mouse soap dish. But crime scene photos and that we saw, there was no mouse soap dish. And so at this time he would have walked into the bathroom, turned on the water, laid the knife down, turned on the water, started washing his hands, and then he turns and sees Ambria, and he lunges towards Ambria. So I guess he grabbed the knife with soap on it, I don't know. Lunges towards her, and he chases her into the living room from the bathroom and lifts her up. You know, he stabs her. Well, Ambria was found in the bed and not found in the living room. So there was another statement that he had made that was not true. He goes back, he says he hears a noise, and he goes back to Debra's bedroom, and he leaves the knife. He stabs her once again and leaves the knife in her chest. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. But Debbie was, like I said, she was not in the bedroom. She was in the hall. And more than likely, she was trying to get back to Ambria, to her room. So, okay. And then on top of it, these attacks were very personal.
Sure. I mean, 19 times to maybe the upper chest, the neck, the head, the face. Yeah, it makes a pretty personal statement.
And Ambria's seemed to be incidental.
Mm-hmm.
And why would that be?
Yeah, I mean, whoever the perpetrator was could have just been scared and stumbled around and did what he thought, or it was enough to kill her, but erase her from being able to identify him.
Right. So.
That's why you and I have talked about it had to be somebody that they knew.
Right, because we have talked to people that say that Debbie would never leave the door opened anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And she would never let someone in that she didn't trust.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, at that time, Debbie was supposed to be gone that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told that she was supposed to go to Missouri with a friend, we'll call her T. And T was supposed to come get her and take her and Ambria to Missouri for the weekend, for Easter weekend. And from what we've been told, T and her husband came down to get them, but didn't never pick them up or check on them. And then we were told that T was living there with her husband at the time. I don't know if maybe they were just recently moved back to Missouri or how that situation played out. But so that would go back to the, there was all familiar DNA and fingerprints.
Yeah, so it didn't sound like they had a suspect by looking at just the fingerprint evidence or the DNA evidence at the time.
No, it didn't look like that. So they go back in 2018 and they send the murder weapon that they found. And I think they found that in the wiped off, wiped clean and put back into the drawer.
Yeah.
So that was something too.
Yeah. Well, it's, I think it's pretty obvious just on the outside looking in that this was a crime of passion.
Mm-hmm.
It happened very quickly, probably. And probably somebody she knew.
Well, let's go back to the map and to a witness that made a statement to TBI in 2018. This kind of go back to Tommy Lindsay's statement about a calico cat jumping out in front of him and then hiding from him. Mm-hmm. There was no calico cat. The only animals that were in that home at any point were Jamie Harris's 2 boxers. So he had 2 boxer dogs that on, and I believe it was March 30th or March 31st. One of the vet techs for those boxers got a phone call about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was from Jamie Harris, and he was asking how, he was telling this tech that his boxer was throwing up and vomiting up blood all over the floor and in his van in the carpet, and he didn't know how to get it out. So he asked her what he needed to do to get the blood out. At that time, she told him he needed to take the dog to emergency care, and he stated that he couldn't afford that. So she took the dog. She told him how to get the dog's blood out of the van and the
What'd she tell?
She told him to use peroxide and bleach.
Mm.
So you're the one that knows more about that than me.
Yeah, peroxide and bleach can destroy DNA. And that's likely why the investigators struggled to find any unfamiliar DNA. So, yeah, I don't know. For her to receive a call within maybe the night of or night after that was projected to be the day or night that she was killed, that's pretty unnerving that kind of thing happened.
Right. So that would have been on the 30th or the 31st, around 2 a.m. So we'll go on up to the 3rd and the 4th of April of those days, and those dogs. So that phone call was made, and the Saturday night before Easter Sunday, a statement was given to the police by 2 women and another man, stating they were with Jamie the night of the 3rd, and they were at a club, Spinnaker's in Jackson, and they stayed there till, I believe that closed at 3 a.m. for my club days, I think. Center. But I think that closed at 2 or 3 a.m. So they left there and they went and got a motel, and they stayed in the motel room until closeout time, that was 11 o'clock on Sunday, Easter morning, the day the bodies were discovered. And on that morning, they leave the motel and they're in this girl's car, and they leave the motel and they go from there to Jamie's van in Milan or in Gibson, not sure, or in Trenton, because there's several addresses. So they go and pick up Jamie's van, and they pick up the 2 dogs, even the one that was having the bloody.
It was sick. Yeah.
So they go riding, and they go and they pick up beer, and this is after 11 a.m. So they went from Jackson back to Milan. I would probably say they were back in Milan by 12 o'clock. Got the van, and then went and got beer, and went riding. So I would say by 12:30 they were on the road going, and they were reportedly went back to Caraway Hills Road 4 to 6 times that day, and then from there went to Paris Landing and smoked a little dope,
drank a little beer,
and then the road back to Milan, and we're back in Milan by 5:15 p.m. on that Sunday. So I think from there we can stop, and we'll wait until next week to get a little more in detail with it.
Yeah, I think next week we're going to highlight some stuff people will be really interested in. And looking forward to our next episodes, we are going to have potentially some friends and family stop by and talk to us. And that'll make an interesting episode, but we may also plan a live event around that too. And what I want to say to you is when you see this, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And we certainly appreciate the time. And any questions or comments you have, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And thank you, my beautiful wife, Taryn.
Thank you, my amazing husband, Ben.
And look for the next episode coming next week.
Thank y'all.